Mainstream networks like CNN are telling you that the US is prepping a massive D-Day-style ground invasion to take Kharg Island. They claim this massive force of 60,000 troops is absolutely necessary to unlock the highly contested Strait of Hormuz today. Any real combat veteran with actual deployment experience will tell you that this entire concept is a suicide mission and a tactical joke. The Pentagon leadership is definitely not going to send American boots into a million-man meat grinder just to secure a small island. The real operation to completely crush the IRGC is actually already happening right now under the cover of absolute total darkness. This brilliant operational strategy is completely invisible to the naked eye, and it does not require a single Marine on Iranian sand. Iran believes they are sending a very clear message to the world by holding the global economy hostage in an absolute zone of high risk. A massive zone of unprecedented danger is emerging in the Gulf region that no conventional superpower would ever dare to physically breach. However, here is the actual asymmetric war plan utilizing advanced technology that the mainstream media establishment is completely ignoring. True Pentagon OPSEC means the real crippling blow will happen before the Iranian forces can even power up their outdated radar systems. You are constantly hearing about the deployment of the 82nd Airborne Division and tens of thousands of conventional soldiers. Reports highlight a massive American military presence of 50,000 troops fully equipped and ready for major combat operations. If you add the incoming Marine Expeditionary Units and airborne troops, the total personnel count reaches nearly 67,000. YouTube armchair generals are pointing at these troop movements and screaming about an impending ground invasion of Iranian territory. They see assault ships like the USS Tripoli arriving and assume we are repeating the tragic conventional military mistakes of the past. But what if I told you that the US military actually wants the Iranian leadership to focus entirely on this massive visible buildup? This troop concentration is not meant for a beach landing, but serves as a brilliant operational diversion and a powerful defensive shield. The Pentagon is deliberately waving this heavy conventional stick to force the enemy into preparing for a ground war that will never happen. While everyone is distracted by the infantry, the true asymmetric strangulation campaign is silently moving into position in the background. Let us decode the highly classified reality of this modern operation and see how the US is turning the ultimate trap against Iran itself. The Iranian military has completely covered the critical 21-mile-long Strait of Hormuz with a dense network of hidden sea mines. The entire coastline surrounding Kharg Island has been deliberately laced with deadly booby traps and explosive-laden suicide patrol boats. The ultimate purpose of this layered underwater labyrinth is to create a terrifying psychological barrier against any approaching global navy. Everyone is panicking right now about Iran mining these maritime choke points and calling this dense defensive network the ultimate trap. Mainstream news outlets wrongly assume the US military will actually attempt a massive physical naval sweep, requiring thousands of body bags. The classified reality is that the Pentagon simply does not need to physically clear any mines or send ships into this absolute death trap. American military planners have completely abandoned the outdated World War II beach landing narrative for this specific theater of war. Instead of sailing directly into an obvious ambush, the US command structure will completely bypass the mine perimeter with absolute ease. The United States Navy does not need to sail anywhere near the Strait of Hormuz to completely choke off the Iranian economy. They can execute a massive strategic blockade in the deep waters of the Indian Ocean where the enemy has zero defensive capability. By seizing Iranian-bound oil tankers exactly like they did with Venezuela, the military cuts the financial bloodline entirely. This brilliant maneuver completely bypasses the entire network of coastal defense missiles that the IRGC spent decades building. Iran relies entirely on these maritime shipments to fund its military operations and proxy networks across the Middle East region. Without firing a single shot on the beaches, the American naval forces will completely starve the hostile regime of its critical resources. Iran believes they have established an impenetrable A2AD bubble over the strait, but US stealth is designed specifically to shatter it. The concept of anti-access and area denial is the entire foundation of their defensive strategy to keep foreign global navies far away. To dismantle this dense network of coastal missile batteries, the Pentagon will rely entirely on advanced stealth and standoff munitions. There is absolutely no requirement to send tens of thousands of conventional ground troops into a heavily fortified hostile territory. This strategic approach ensures that the highest value targets are systematically destroyed while keeping American military personnel safe. Iran's drone swarms are rendered entirely useless against next-gen electronic attack platforms and high-frequency microwave weapons today. These advanced systems do not rely on traditional kinetic munitions, which can be easily intercepted by standard air defense batteries. Instead, the American military utilizes directed energy bursts to fry the internal circuitry of Iranian systems in a few milliseconds. Every single guidance chip inside their lethal ballistic missiles will simply melt away before the weapons even leave their launch pads. Even the explosive-laden suicide boats patrolling the waters will immediately go dark as their navigation and communication modules burn. The Pentagon has fundamentally changed the rules of engagement, utilizing invisible weapons to neutralize the enemy without making a sound. The recent battlefields of Ukraine have provided the American military with invaluable real-world data on defeating massive drone swarms. Pentagon engineers meticulously analyzed every single Russian drone attack to perfectly calibrate their own invisible defensive shields. Iran heavily relies on this exact same cheap swarm technology to overwhelm traditional air defense systems through sheer massive numbers. However, stopping dozens or even hundreds of these suicide drones simultaneously is no longer a difficult kinetic challenge for the U.S. High-powered electronic attack aircraft can project an invisible wall of electromagnetic energy that instantly scrambles their frequencies. Instead of wasting million-dollar interceptor missiles, the military uses directed energy to turn these airborne threats into falling scrap. The entire Iranian strategy of utilizing these asymmetric drone swarms collapses the moment they encounter this next-generation technology. When analysts discuss the advanced F-35 stealth fighters, they usually focus entirely on their direct kinetic bombing capabilities. The true tactical value of this incredibly advanced aviation platform is its unparalleled ability to act as a massive flying supercomputer. These stealth jets can effortlessly penetrate heavily defended enemy airspace while silently gathering mountains of electronic intelligence. Instead of dropping bombs, these stealth aircraft will operate as the central nervous system for the entire invisible asymmetric war plan. The F-35 target acquisition network instantly processes the coordinates of every hidden coastal missile battery and hostile radar station. After identifying these threat zones, the system seamlessly transmits this critical targeting data to standoff platforms located miles away. This unprecedented level of aerial dominance allows the U.S. military to systematically dismantle Iranian defenses without being detected. The hostile regime will be completely blinded and paralyzed before they even realize the most overwhelming force in history has arrived. By utilizing this advanced data-sharing technology, the Pentagon ensures absolute total victory without sacrificing any American personnel. When discussing absolute aerial dominance over the region, the conversation inevitably turns to the legendary B-52 Stratofortress. These massive strategic bombers are capable of delivering terrifying payloads affectionately known by operators as the candles from hell. Operating safely from the high stratosphere, these aircraft can deploy long-range standoff munitions well outside the enemy engagement zones. There is absolutely no requirement for American pilots to risk flying directly into the heavily fortified Iranian air defense bubbles. Instead, they unleash a devastating barrage of precision cruise missiles that systematically obliterate radar installations from miles away. The heavily entrenched coastal defense networks are rendered entirely helpless against this overwhelming kinetic bombardment from above. Within hours, the entire offensive infrastructure of the IRGC will be reduced to smoldering rubble without a single dogfight taking place. The newly established U.S. Space Command plays an absolutely critical role in blinding the enemy before any kinetic engagement even begins. Iran heavily relies on detailed satellite imagery and intelligence feeds, secretly provided by their powerful allies like Russia and China. Advanced orbital platforms operated by the Pentagon are specifically designed to intercept and completely scramble these hostile data links. By utilizing classified electronic warfare techniques from space, they ensure the Iranian command structure remains entirely in the dark. Without this vital overhead intelligence, their fortified coastal missile batteries cannot track or engage any incoming American targets. The entire anti-access and area denial bubble collapses the moment their foreign satellite communication networks are effectively neutralized. This invisible layer of technological dominance guarantees that the subsequent strike operations will proceed without any major complications. Beijing and Moscow simply cannot risk an open orbital conflict with Washington just to protect a proxy regime in the volatile Middle East. Forget the media narrative claiming 50,000 conventional troops will march across the heavily fortified Iranian beaches. If anyone is currently operating on the ground, it is highly classified embedded force recon and elite Tier 1 operators. These highly specialized ghost units silently infiltrate the hostile terrain, carefully painting strategic targets for the overhead bombers. Unlike the constant operational leaks you see on mainstream news, true Pentagon OPSEC keeps these quiet professionals entirely hidden. They use advanced laser designation gear to securely link critical surface coordinates directly to the waiting B-52 payloads flying above. This precise surgical approach completely replaces the devastating requirement for an amphibious assault on heavily defended islands. A large footprint of conventional infantry forces would simply become unnecessary targets in this advanced asymmetric warfare environment. These phantom warriors ensure that the highest value enemy assets are erased without triggering a chaotic regional ground war. The IRGC completely relies on asymmetric proxy warfare because they know a symmetrical fight would be absolute suicide. They have spent decades funding dangerous militant groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis to create massive regional chaos. Tehran desperately hopes to distract the American military by igniting multiple small conflicts across the entire Middle East. However, the Pentagon is not going to fall into this obvious trap by deploying vulnerable ground forces to chase these proxies. Instead of fighting a slow conventional war on multiple fronts, the United States will leverage its overwhelming aerial supremacy. Simultaneous devastating cyber attacks will immediately sever the communication lines between the IRGC and their proxy networks. A conventional physical confrontation with American air and naval power would be completely over in less than 72 hours. This calculated strategy ensures the proxy network collapses entirely without dragging the US into an endless bloody occupation. I completely understand why so many of you are deeply concerned about the possibility of an impending massive ground invasion. Sending tens of thousands of young American soldiers into a heavily fortified meat grinder in the Middle East is an absolute disaster. The horrific reality of massive casualty numbers is exactly what the hostile Iranian leadership desperately wants us to experience. We must prioritize an America First strategy that absolutely minimizes the direct risk to our brave men and women in uniform. Utilizing overwhelming air and naval supremacy is simply the smartest way to project power while actively protecting American lives. By leveraging our unmatched electronic warfare capabilities, we can completely neutralize the immediate threat without losing a single soldier. This highly advanced tactical approach resonates strongly with anyone who truly values the safety of our dedicated military personnel. The mainstream media completely misinterprets President Trump's recent 10-day suspension of direct military attacks. They wrongly assume this temporary pause is a final chance for diplomacy or a massive conventional troop buildup. The absolute truth is that this brief window provides the necessary time to maneuver classified orbital platforms. High-altitude electronic attack aircraft and specialized satellites are silently moving into their final attack orbits. Once this precise 10-day countdown finally expires, the Pentagon will instantly unleash absolute electromagnetic hell. The visible conventional forces merely provide a protective shield, while these invisible weapons reach full readiness. There will be no massive beach landing to signal the beginning, just a sudden and catastrophic total systems failure. The entire Iranian defense network will simultaneously go dark before they even realize the invisible war has started. The invisible countdown is ticking away right now, and the entire global balance is hanging by a very thin technological thread. Both sides are desperately trying to use time to their advantage, but this tension will inevitably reach an uncontrollable boiling point. Every single deployed electronic platform fundamentally alters the delicate risk calculation for the upcoming asymmetric confrontation. Now I must turn this critical strategic conversation over to my highly intelligent audience of military veterans and geopolitical analysts. So I leave it to you. Is the U.S. military holding back its ultimate electronic warfare capabilities to avoid a wider regional conflict? Or is the Pentagon playing right into a massive strategic trap set by Russia and China to completely drain crucial American resources? Please take a moment to carefully let me know your detailed tactical assessment in the active comments section located directly down below. Thank you for choosing to watch this comprehensive tactical briefing, and please remember to subscribe for more deep military analysis.